Welcome to a new video. Let's take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. The first story is called, If We Are Not Back by 6, Close Up. One of the recurring things we would experience in the warehouse days were customers trying to get their goods out of the store without having to pay a delivery fee. Anything and everything was fair game. Massive sofas, coffee tables, oversized rugs. And in 99% of the cases, it would be a vehicle that wouldn't accommodate the product. Naturally, the salespeople or customer would look to us lowly warehouse workers with exasperation. As if we were holding the magic keys to make a sofa bed fit into a Mini Cooper. One day we get this younger couple in. And from the get-go, they have all the answers. They were smug, condescending and downright dismissive. They want a discontinued lounge we have wrapped up in the cage. Apparently, it retails for $5,400 but because it's discontinued, they get it for something ridiculous like $499. Anyway, the conversation turns to delivery. And for the record, we have awesome contract drivers who work hard for a reasonable rate. This couple laughs off the salesperson. There's no way they're paying for delivery. They turn to myself and my coworker and insist we load the sofa straight onto the top of their car and they'll tie it down. I said, we can lift one end and you lift the section that's going onto your car first. There's no way I or any of my guys are coming into contact with his car before he does. So the guy backs his car up to our loading dock. And I just shake my head. It's the smallest Audi I've ever seen. He grabs his end, we grab ours and manage to get it up onto the roof of the car. And guess what? The sofa is so long, it kinda bends like a banana, and covers most of the windshield and the back window. The guy signs off on our paperwork that he's taken the product, and is happy with how it's been loaded up, absolving us of any liability or responsibility. They try and drive off but can barely get out of the car park. This was 20 minutes before closing time. The customer and the salesperson have a conversation and the sales associate comes over. He said they want to borrow a trolley. For what? They want to wheel their sofa home. Do they live close by? In the next suburb. Now that's a good 20 minutes with a car in normal traffic. I looked to my guys. This isn't going to go well. But the sales guy said, look, put it on your paperwork that I borrowed the trolley and I'll take full responsibility. So I agreed and handed him my paperwork. He asked, until when are you here? I have to be out of here by 6. The customer said that they will be back by then to get their car. I said, just to let you know. The warehouse closes at 5:30 and by 6 I have to lock up the yard and make sure the access gate is closed. The customer said, if we're not back by 6, just close the gates. So I complied. The customer loads this ridiculously large lounge on the trolley and he and his girlfriend start wheeling this thing along the side of the road during peak hour traffic. At 5:30, I close up the warehouse, turn on the security system and do my final external checks before I go. As I walk the perimeter of the warehouse, I keep eyeing the Audi they've left parked in our back lot. At 5:45 I've closed off the loading docks and made sure they're locked up and secure. At 5:50 I've made sure that all our skip bins are locked and that the back gates are all in place ready to go. 6 ticks over. I look up the road. There was no customer in sight. Oh well, I shall comply with your wishes. I lock the gate, click all 3 padlocks into place, and head off to enjoy my long weekend. I wish I was there when the customers came back and realized that they wouldn't have access to their car for a few days as the next day was a public holiday. All that just to save a few dollars on delivery. The next story is called, You Want Detailed Reports? I used to work as part of a private security team assigned to 2 extremely high-risk apartment complexes. These buildings were full of gangs and things that come with it. We were different from normal security in that we often made arrests and conducted investigations and things like that. When we first started, the apartment management company stated a rule. They only wanted brief daily reports to accompany any specific incident reports because they did not have time to read them. This worked well initially when we were making 2 or 3 reports a night. But then we became too effective. People started to realize that we meant business. And unlike police, we were always there, and things started to slow down. After a couple of months, crime rates went down to once or twice a week. A couple of months after that, I got a very angry call from the security company owner. He was saying that the management company was upset. They were thinking that we must not be doing anything because we had nothing on our reports and we needed to be more detailed in describing what we were doing. No problem, I got it. So we went from writing nothing to report hourly when there were no incidents to report to filling out general duties such as spend the hours from 11 to 1 patrolling near and inside buildings X, Y, and X. Things like that. This turned our original 8-sentence report into about a page or so. Since the crime level was down and we still had not much in the way of anything to put down, that was not good enough. So after having a stellar record for the 6 months I was there, I suddenly found myself being written up for there not being anything to report. Detailed reports, he said. Every single thing you do, he said. You want to know everything I do, I got you. From that day on, I would use the speech-to-text function on my phone and record every little thing I did. Down to the minute. I also wrote down things like, said hello to a resident. And such things. For the whole shift. Instead of updating the report every few hours, I spend 20 minutes of every hour in the office, writing down every step I took. My reports were around 4 to 5 pages solid of every step I took. This lasted about a week until I was told that I was taking it too far and to dial it back, whereupon I quoted from the write-up I received as well as his email telling me to document everything I did and said that I was just worried about being written up again for misinterpenetrating his orders. He then told me that 1 page worth of information would do. The third story is called, I Will Make Sure Your Boss Is Watching. About a year ago, I had a temporary contract as a material handler and forklift driver at an oil refinery. My job was primarily to move stuff around their on-site warehouse. The company that owned the refinery contracts their inventory and warehousing to the company that hired me. What this means is that almost everybody I reported to in my day-to-day was from my company, but they were subordinate to the contractor. Specifically, we had a contractor representative who mostly hung around as an observer. And once in a while, some bigwig would come around to check in on us and make sure we were complying with the rules and to see how we were doing. In my first week on the job, I was on a stand-up forklift moving pallets from one side of the warehouse to the other, and I got to one pallet with a big valve on it. The pallet was slightly too small to fit the forks in, and with the lift I was on, I couldn't adjust the width of the forks. Normally I'd move it with a pallet jack, but we didn't have any that was narrow enough. Moving by hand is out of the question as these valves are basically solid steel. They weigh a ton and all I'd end up doing is breaking my spine trying to lift it. So I flag over my supervisor and explain the problem, and ask if we have any narrower hand trucks. Just lift it with one of the forks, no need to use both, he says. Now, I know I'm not supposed to do this. I also know that very little can go wrong as long as I just drag it along the floor. But 3 or 4 separate orientation sessions have drilled into me that the contractor is very strict about safety and rules. I ask my supervisor if he's sure he wants me to do that. He scoffs and says yes, it's fine, then goes off to do something else. Something else, in this case, is intercepting the bigwig who's just walked into the warehouse. My supervisor heads over to talk about whatever he's come in to discuss. They have this discussion right in front of the pallet I'm about to move. Having just been told by my immediate superior that it's okay to lift a pallet with only one fork inserted, I roll the forklift over, making sure that I'm in the bigwig's direct line of sight. And then proceed to lift a pallet carrying an expensive valve using only one fork. I saw an inventory sheet once, these things cost more than I make in a month. The bigwig sees me do this, stops talking in mid-sentence and just watches in silence. My supervisor notices that he's stopped talking, and he turns around and watches. I smile and reverse slowly away. As I'm moving away, I hear my supervisor sheepishly say, yes, he asked if it was okay to do that. I said it was. But maybe we should get some narrower hand trucks in or something. The last story is called, No Problem. I drive charter tour coaches for a living. Our industry is very heavily regulated, as it should be, as we carry the most valuable of cargo, your family. And if I fall asleep and hit your car, you know what could happen. Now one of the rules is after a working day a minimum of time in complete rest must be given undisturbed. By law, this time can be reduced but only 3 times a work period. Another interesting rule is, by law, if your rest is disturbed, your rest must restart as though you have had no rest. It sounds confusing, but I can have only 9 hours rest 3 times a week and the rest must be 11 hours minimum. Less than 11 complete hours rest period and it's treated like I had only 9. Because of this, most tour companies keep rest periods to an 11 hours minimum, looking on the reduced rest as a just in case we get held up and get finished late, etc. So we can start on time the next day and stick to the itinerary. Now we worked with one tour company. Let's call them Mega Cheap Tours. And their tour leaders like to squeeze every last bit of driving out of their tour hires. They are on excursions all day to some out-of-the-way flea pit, as long as the tour leader gets a kickback, travel to the hotel and then a dinner transfer and back to the hotel at night. Most good companies eat close or in their hotel to allow the driver to rest. But for these guys, only the cheapest was best. And if that meant an hour there and an hour back at night, so be it. Screw the driver, they are paying for him. The reason for this is the tour leader got a kickback if they ate at the tour leader's favorite spot, and they had one in every overnight stop. I had spoken to my traffic manager about how these guys just ignored the itinerary and was told, just do what they say, they are the customer. Now I was working with one tour leader. We'll call him Juan. Juan was well known for not only working you to the ground but also stiffing you on your gratuities. He collected them from the passengers on the last day as we traveled to the airport to help you, sat behind you, then placed them into an envelope. An envelope you knew was light from experience. It was the last day of the tour. Tomorrow I get rid of them all at the airport. And good riddance, I thought, as the passengers are in an excursion. Juan comes to the coach. We need to go here for dinner tonight. He passes me the address. I looked at the satellite navigation. That's 1 hour and 15 minutes away from our hotel tonight. Your group will be eating for 2 hours. And then we have to drive back, then I need to shut down the bus and park it. I won't be finished until about 11. He looks at me. I know the rules. You only need 9 hours rest. We will leave at 8, plenty of time for the flight. He was right, of course. But remember that 3 times a week thing? He had already had me on short rest 3 times this trip for dinner transfers. It was at this point malicious compliance kicked in. You are right. I can work after 9 hours rest. I changed the subject quickly as he smiled at me, thinking he had screwed me over. Well, the dinner transfer was worse than I thought. Heavy traffic getting there meant I was late, which meant they started eating late, which of course meant they came back late. By the time I parked at the hotel, it was closer to midnight. I knew what was coming in the morning, so I phoned my 24-hour traffic department. And as I expected, I was told under no circumstances was I to break the law and run without my legal rest. Massive fines for the company and for me if I did. Normally I set 2 alarms when I'm on reduced rest as, to be honest, it takes a toll and I need them to get up, but that night, I set nothing. And took my hotel phone off the hook. I went to bed. I woke up to thumping at my hotel door. There was the hotel manager and a very irate Juan, you stupid driver. It's 8, everyone is outside, checked out with luggage, and you've slept in. Get dressed and get the coach. I smiled. Juan, I'm on my legal break. We got back nearly at midnight, so I can't start till nearly 9. But besides, I've worked 3 times after reduced rest this trip and can't go anywhere until I got 11 hours of undisturbed rest. Also, you've just disturbed my rest, as this gentleman can confirm. I was friendly with the hotel staff. They used the same hotels every trip and the staff hated the trips, as they never tipped. Or rather, his guests did through his suggestion, but he collected it to hand it in. You know what it means, right? By law, my rest period resets and starts again. But you know this, as you know the rules, right? So, see you at 7 tonight. I turned to the manager. It's okay that I have a late checkout, right? The manager was nodding enthusiastically, knowing what I'd just done. Juan's eyes nearly bulged out of his head, which was funny. Wait, what do you mean? We need to get a flight at 2. I know, I said. It would be the best when you start organizing taxis for the 40 people out there. And for the next trip, don't stitch up your driver. With this, I shut the door. I knew what was about to happen. Within 5 minutes, my own phone rang. It was the traffic manager. He was asking what time I finished the night before, then saying you can start at 9 until I pointed out the 3 late finishes. He got silent. Then he said, well, you're right. But don't expect to be doing any more of these companies' tours. They will request we never send you. I asked if he wanted me to drive without the legal rest. I knew he wouldn't dare to say yes, as I could be recording it. No, you must take legal rest. This is the tour leader's problem, of his own making. If he had stuck to the itinerary's hours, everything would be fine. Just do me a favor and start at 11 and not 7. We need the coach back here tonight. I knew when to not push it any further, and said I would be happy to start at 11. I would start getting ready now and go down for breakfast. An hour later, I went down and saw Juan surrounded by angry passengers, screaming at him with a phone to his ear. He saw me and came over. "Mr. driver, please. I know my company can get a coach to hire. And it's 40 miles to the airport and our flight leaves in just over 4 hours. My company is mad that I've not left you your legal rest. They are blaming me. Please help me." I couldn't resist. "Juan, if you use all those gratuities you have stolen from me and everyone else over the years, you will be able to afford to hire 10 taxis no problem and make the flight. But I would be quick about it, otherwise, you might get stuck with 40 replacement flights as well as taxis." Juan gulped, his eyes bugled and he went white. It was funny to watch. He ran to the reception, asking for 10 taxis. What was funnier was when the taxis showed up. They said he needed another 4 or 5 just for the luggage, as each person had 2 massive suitcases. I just sat there, watching the show through the window, eating my breakfast and drinking my coffee. The staff thought I was a hero, and all smirked and looked on from their respective posts. I knew after this, no tips from the passengers would change hands and the cost of those taxis would hit his current fiddle bankroll hard. And my boss was right. I never have nor never will do these companies' tours again. It was quickly passed back I was not wanted, but one has never been back leading these companies' tours either. My ex-colleagues have told me that now the tour leaders are told by their head office to never give the drivers less than 11 hours off every night and factor this into any dinner transfers. If it can't be accommodated, then no dinner transfer. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel for more content. Let me know what you think about the stories in the comments section below. Have a great day. Bye bye.